No one expected a quiet night drive to turn into a scene of horror. A bright 21-year-old with dreams of becoming a singer would end up attacked multiple times by the person she trusted. We reveal the overlooked red flags, the heartbreaking choices, and the moment everything broke. Stay with us and subscribe so you don't miss a single chilling detail. Tawnee Marie Baird was born in June 1993 to Dana Anderson and Casey Baird. Although her parents separated when she was only 1 year old, they maintained a respectful and cooperative relationship. Her father remained actively involved in her life, speaking with her regularly and spending holidays together. Those close to Tawnee described her as a natural-born leader, someone who thrived in the company of others. Her father recalled how her magnetic personality drew in a circle of devoted friends who followed her everywhere. She lived in the city of Holiday, located just outside Salt Lake City, Utah. Tawnee enrolled at Salt Lake City Community College and worked as an accounting assistant. Ambitious and full of dreams, she aspired to become a famous singer and hoped one day to live near the ocean in California. However, at age 17, her life took a sudden turn. One night, she was riding in a car with older friends while they smoked marijuana. When the group was stopped and searched by police, more stimulants and other items were found in the back seat. One of her friends later said that Tawnee took the blame to protect the others, knowing that as a minor, she would face less severe consequences than her older companions. As a result, she was charged with a Class B misdemeanor for possession of a controlled substance. Her father, Casey, who had previously battled addiction himself, grew concerned and contacted her probation officer, requesting a drug test to determine whether his daughter had used any stimulants. However, the officer said he lacked the authority to enforce that request, and the matter was referred to juvenile court. From there, Tawnee was placed under the custody of the Division of Child and Family Services and sent to live with her aunt. Eventually, she was placed in a youth treatment center for a 90-day program. It was within this facility that she met Victoria Mendoza. Victoria, too, came from a difficult background. She had lost her father at age 10 and frequently ran away from home and skipped school. She was familiar with various juvenile programs and treatment centers. To make matters worse, her mother was now terminally ill with cancer, and the two of them were struggling to survive with barely any financial support. In a modest one-bedroom apartment in Ogden, Tawnee's mother, Dana, recalled how emotionally vulnerable her daughter had been at the time she met Victoria. For Victoria, this wasn't her first time in a juvenile facility, but for Tawnee, it was a completely new and unsettling experience. Drawn to Victoria's demeanor and presence, Tawnee quickly felt a sense of comfort and protection. According to family and friends, the bond between them seemed to grow from that contrast, Tawnee being open, social, and flirtatious, while Victoria was more introverted, emotionally intense, and prone to jealousy. Despite their differences, one thing united them deeply: a shared love for music. They often exchanged lyrics and wrote songs for each other, strengthening their emotional connection. What began as a friendship gradually transformed into a romantic relationship, and the two became inseparable. After Tawnee completed her 90-day program and was released from the facility, Victoria followed about a month later. Tawnee and her father Casey went to pick her up, and he immediately noticed the stark contrast between the two girls. Although something about Victoria unsettled him, he chose to support the relationship for the sake of his daughter. Dana also welcomed Victoria into their home, and both families made efforts to embrace the young couple. Tawnee's best friend Lacey admitted that Victoria came across as rough and guarded, but there was no denying the powerful connection between the two. Their dynamic seemed strong, emotionally charged, and deeply intertwined. On social media, they often posted affectionate pictures and messages, painting the image of a devoted couple. Yet behind the online appearances, reality was more complicated. Their relationship became increasingly unstable, marked by frequent arguments, breakups, and reconciliations. At one point, when Victoria cheated on Tawnee with one of her friends, she attempted to win her back by posting a public video on YouTube, pleading for forgiveness. This emotional turbulence, while invisible to outsiders, hinted at deeper issues brewing beneath the surface. Victoria Mendoza, overwhelmed with emotion and desperation, decided to record a video message in an attempt to win Tawnee back. Her speech was scattered and impulsive, reflecting both her anxiety and the depth of her emotional turmoil. She began by admitting that she struggled to find the right words, acknowledging her discomfort in front of the camera. Still, she pushed forward, determined to address the pain she had caused. The video, more than an apology, became an unfiltered expression of her guilt, love, jealousy, and longing. Victoria confessed to cheating on Tawnee with one of her close friends, a betrayal she regretted deeply. She didn't hold back her feelings, expressing anger toward the other girl and stating bluntly that she wanted nothing to do with her. Her focus was entirely on Tawnee. She apologized for hurting her and begged for another chance, saying she was still in love and would do anything to prove she could be better. The emotional weight of the message grew heavier as she reflected on their shared past and the bond that had once connected them so strongly. She spoke at length about how they had first met at the treatment center, how she had been drawn to Tawnee, and how meaningful their early interactions had been. Victoria referenced handwritten letters they had exchanged, especially one where Tawnee wrote about missing her and feeling something different, something deeper than usual. That letter, Victoria said, remained one of her most cherished possessions. It symbolized the emotional connection she still clung to, despite the betrayal that had damaged it. As the video continued, Victoria shifted between emotional vulnerability and defensive outbursts. She expressed how much Tawnee meant to her, stating that she wasn't ashamed of their relationship and that her family already knew how serious it was. She insisted she wasn't seeing anyone else and was committed to waiting for Tawnee, emphasizing that no one else could take her place. She grew more agitated when addressing imagined viewers or critics, lashing out with profanity and making it clear that she didn't care what anyone thought. Her only goal was to win back the person she had lost. Victoria ended the video with a final, emotional plea, stating that she didn't want to see Tawnee with anyone else. She vowed to fight for their relationship and to do whatever it took to be reunited. Though the video was chaotic and raw, it reflected a deep emotional dependency and a desperate need for reconciliation. And against all odds, her message had the desired effect. After a period of distance, the two reunited once more. In the beginning, Victoria developed a strong bond with Tawnee's family. Casey, Tawnee's father, saw her almost as a second daughter, and both he and Dana supported her emotionally through her mother's terminal illness. Casey was even present at Victoria's mother's home during her final moments. After her mother passed away, Victoria moved in permanently with Tawnee's family, and it appeared that she was working hard to turn her life around. The family encouraged her. Tawnee's grandmother even paid for the removal of some of Victoria's tattoos, a symbolic gesture to help her start fresh. With their support, Victoria began preparing for her first job as a security guard. It seemed like things were improving, but the tension between Victoria and Tawnee soon found its way into the household. Their arguments became frequent and intense, often requiring Tawnee's grandmother daily to step in and defuse the situation. Although the volatility was escalating, Daly never believed Victoria would take it to a dangerous level. According to Tawnee's grandmother, the relationship had grown increasingly codependent and unhealthy. Victoria was deeply possessive and had difficulty accepting that Tawnee maintained friendships outside the relationship. Despite this, the two presented an outward image that everything was fine. That illusion shattered when Tawnee returned home one day with a bleeding lip, a visible cut, and a missing front tooth. Dana immediately suspected Victoria and announced she would contact the police. But Tawnee pleaded with her not to, knowing that because Victoria was now legally an adult, the consequences could be far more serious. Casey also noticed the missing tooth and that Victoria had visible scratches on her face. He felt something far more troubling was unfolding, but both women insisted the injuries were the result of a fight that had broken out at a party. No further explanation was given, and the issue was pushed aside. Tawnee's grandmother later admitted that Victoria had a way of manipulating everyone around her. She knew exactly what to say and how to control the narrative. For Tawnee's best friend Lacey, the violent incident seemed like a clear breaking point. She thought surely Tawnee would end things now. But to her surprise, Tawnee pretended as if nothing had happened, and the relationship continued as before. By 2014, Tawnee and Victoria had been together for 5 years. Despite the underlying tension, they still traveled frequently to Ogden to visit family, maintaining the outward appearance of a stable couple. On the evening of the 17th of October, 2014, Tawnee, Victoria, and their friend Lacey went out together. However, tensions quickly surfaced. At one point, Victoria spent an extended period in the bathroom, returning visibly upset and abruptly demanding that they leave. The outing ended earlier than expected, and the atmosphere was tense as the three got into Tawnee's car. Victoria sat in the back seat, still simmering with anger, though the source of her frustration was unclear to the others. Tawnee dropped Lacey off first. The two exchanged affectionate words, as they always did, and then parted ways. What occurred after Lacey left remains partially unclear, but according to Victoria's later statement, another argument erupted between her and Tawnee. In the heat of the moment, Victoria pulled a 4-inch sharp object from her pocket and began attacking Tawnee as she drove. Despite being injured, Tawnee managed to steer the vehicle into a parking lot at 2484 East Avenue in West Ogden, but the assault continued relentlessly. Victoria inflicted multiple injuries on Tawnee. Afterward, she moved her unresponsive body to the passenger seat and kept driving for some time. Eventually, she began calling people, including a friend named Aaron, and confessed to what had happened. The calls were made just after midnight, now the 18th of October. It's believed that one of the individuals she contacted, either directly or indirectly, was the one who alerted emergency services. When officers arrived, Victoria admitted to the attacking and told them the knife was still in the vehicle. Police found Tawnee slumped in the car, fatally wounded, with injuries across her body. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Investigators later confirmed that the 911 call likely came from a family member who had been contacted by someone Victoria had spoken to. That person, in turn, made the decision to inform authorities. The murder had unfolded rapidly, but the signs of volatility and emotional instability had long been building beneath the surface. Tawnee Baird, Tawnee's father, had been away on a work trip when tragedy struck. On Facebook, he expressed his heartbreak, writing that he felt lost, devastated, and overwhelmed by grief. He shared his pain with friends and family online, stating his one desire now was justice for his daughter. At the time of the incident, Tawnee and Victoria were heading back to holiday from Ogden after visiting friends, but they never made it home. Their final stop was a church parking lot on East Avenue, where the fatal confrontation occurred. According to police reports, the couple began arguing during the car ride. The fight escalated quickly once they pulled over, and in a moment of extreme violence, Victoria fatally attacked Tawnee. After the attacking, she called a family member who arrived at the scene and dialed 911. Victoria had said enough over the phone to implicate herself, so when the emergency call came in, officers already believed they were responding to a murder. Authorities stated they were now investigating whether there had been a documented history of domestic violence between the two. Tawnee's aunt, though declining to appear on camera, described her as a kind, loving young woman who was attending Salt Lake Community College. Police emphasized that tragedies like this can be prevented and encouraged anyone witnessing or experiencing domestic abuse to contact law enforcement before it's too late. Dana, Tawnee's mother, was overwhelmed with regret. She recalled taking Victoria into their home and treating her like family. Dana said her daughter had returned home in the middle of the night weeks earlier. Sobbing and missing a tooth, Victoria had punched her during an argument. Although Dana had threatened to call the police, Tawnee and Victoria always begged her not to. Now, she said, she wished she hadn't listened. By early Saturday morning, Dana knew something was wrong. She saw police cars approaching and instinctively understood what had happened. Her daughter, just 21 years old, described as vibrant, joyful, and full of life, was gone. Now Dana urges others who may be in similar relationships not to stay silent. In her words, she wished she had done more and hoped her story might prevent another parent from facing the same unbearable loss. Victoria Mendoza was formally charged with first-degree murder following the fatal stabbing of her girlfriend, 21-year-old Tawnee Baird. Initially, her bail was set at $100,000. However, that amount was soon revoked, and the court ordered that Mendoza be held without the possibility of bail. During the initial hearing, which lasted nearly an hour, both sides focused their arguments on whether Mendoza posed a threat to the public and whether denying her bail was legally justifiable. Deputy District Attorney Chris Allred of Weber County voiced strong confidence in the state's case. He expressed surprise that Mendoza's defense attorney argued she was not a danger to society, noting that the evidence against her was overwhelming. Allred also stated that Mendoza had already confessed to the crime multiple times. Although he acknowledged that the defense might still present alternative arguments, he felt certain the case was solid. The defense team claimed that denying Mendoza bail amounted to preemptive punishment, arguing that it violated her constitutional rights. Her attorney emphasized that his responsibility was to defend the Constitution, regardless of the charges. Despite these objections, the judge ultimately upheld the no-bail order. The decision was seen as a significant move, especially in light of the brutality of the crime. Family and friends of Tawnee Baird left the courtroom feeling relieved. One relative pointed out that the nature of the crime, 46 wounds, was reason enough to consider Victoria a continued threat. Others echoed that sentiment, saying they were glad the court recognized the danger Mendoza posed. Although Victoria had yet to formally enter a plea and her legal strategy remained unclear, the prosecution reiterated that she had already admitted to the killing several times, further strengthening their case. During the initial hearings, she showed signs of extreme psychological distress and at one point even threatened to make a drastic, life-threatening decision. Her legal team argued vigorously against the prosecution's characterization of her as a danger to society. They claimed that the true threat came not from their client, but from the hostile online environment, particularly on Mr. Barrett's Facebook page, Tawnee's father, where several individuals had made threats directed at Mendoza. They asserted that Mendoza herself had not posed any danger and that public reaction was being unfairly projected onto her. Despite these claims, the prosecution maintained a firm stance. They presented a timeline of the crime, stating that the fatal attack occurred after an argument between Tawnee and Mendoza during a drive along I-15. Mendoza told police that Tawnee had smacked her and pulled her hair, and that this confrontation had triggered her to snap. In response, Mendoza pulled out a knife and attacked Tawnee multiple times. Prosecutors emphasized the shocking disproportionality of the act, arguing that someone capable of that level of violence over such a minor altercation was clearly a risk to others. They warned that if Mendoza could snap so easily once, she might do it again under the right circumstances. As the case developed, more evidence emerged from friends, relatives, and investigators. The overwhelming nature of that evidence and Mendoza's multiple confessions led her attorneys to reevaluate their defense strategy. Ultimately, they advised her to change her plea. Mendoza appeared before the court and pleaded guilty to first-degree felony murder. In a quiet, emotional statement, she said she had no excuse for what she had done and acknowledged the harm she had caused. She admitted that she had knocked out Tawnee's tooth during a previous incident, and although she insisted that both families had made mistakes, she accepted that she was solely responsible for taking Tawnee's life. With the guilty plea entered, the court prepared for formal sentencing. Tawnee's family members delivered powerful victim impact statements. Her mother described her daughter as someone who lit up any room she walked into, a kind-hearted, joyful, and loving young woman. Tawnee had long harbored dreams of becoming an actress and pursuing a career in music. She was attending college, filled with ambition and creative energy, when her life was cut short. The family expressed not only their grief, but their sense of irrevocable loss, a life with endless promise, destroyed in a moment of rage. As sentencing approached, Mendoza's fate was now in the hands of the court, but the emotional damage left behind was something no legal decision could undo. During the final sentencing hearing, Casey Baird and other members of Tawnee's family pleaded with the court to impose the harshest possible punishment. They wanted Victoria Mendoza to spend the rest of her life behind bars for what she had done, but Judge Joseph Bean explained that the law limited his authority. Since the case did not meet the legal standard for aggravated murder under Utah law, he was unable to sentence Mendoza to life without parole. Victoria Mendoza was ultimately sentenced to 16 years to life in prison for the first-degree murder of Tawnee Baird. Although she had taken responsibility by pleading guilty, Tawnee's family felt the sentence did not reflect the brutality of the crime. The fact that Tawnee was attacked multiple times, left to bleed alone, and never given a chance to survive weighed heavily on them. While they acknowledged the legal constraints, the emotional toll remained unresolved. Following the sentencing, Mendoza was transferred to the Utah State Prison. The Board of Pardons later determined that she would not be eligible for a parole hearing until she had served nearly 24 years. That decision would depend on multiple psychological assessments and behavioral evaluations during her incarceration. Despite these restrictions, Mendoza managed to create and operate a TikTok account and a YouTube channel from inside prison, violating the Utah Department of Corrections visitation and communication policy. Authorities confirmed they were unaware of the recordings and launched an internal investigation. Tawnee's mother, Dana, expressed deep regret and lingering guilt. She recalled moments when Tawnee came home injured, when she had considered calling the police but had been persuaded not to. Now, looking back, she believed that if she had fully understood the depth of what her daughter was experiencing, she might have been able to intervene. The signs were there, but like in so many cases of coercive control, they were easy to dismiss until it was too late. Tawnee Baird was a young woman with a vibrant personality, ambitious dreams, and a heart full of love. Her life was taken not by a stranger, but by someone she once called family. This was not a crime of impulse. It was the culmination of years of emotional dependency, unchecked violence, and silent warnings. If this story stayed with you, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and explore more true crime stories we've investigated. Let Tawnee's voice be a reminder and a warning of how quickly love can turn lethal. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence or coercive control, helpful links and resources are listed in the description below.